Did Jimmy Fallon intentionally humiliate BTS's Jin in front of millions of viewers? Why does Shin Se Kyung's expression beside him seem so awkward? And is it true that Jin's appearance on The Tonight Show this time is considered a decrease compared to his November 2024 comeback? One short video has blown up the emotions of the ARMY around the world. But is this just a misunderstanding? Or is there something much bigger going on? Is Jimmy Fallon's laugh as light as ever? Or is it really going too far this time? It's not the first time Jin has appeared on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, but never before has a moment like this happened. A moment that so shook, it even created an emotional storm on social media in a matter of seconds. One video, one sentence, an expression of Shin Se Kyung. And everything changed. BTS's Jin reappeared on The Tonight Show in May 2025 to promote his new album, Echo, a work touted as the pinnacle of self-reflection, heart-wrenching, and full of artistic maturity. But what happens on the show is far from being appreciated. On the contrary, the moment was the beginning of a huge explosion of disappointment and anger of the fans. It all started with a brief statement that came out of Jimmy's mouth when Jin sat on the guest sofa. In a seemingly relaxed atmosphere, Fallon suddenly threw a joke. "Oh man, I still remember happy. That one had energy, spark, and now with Echo, are we going through a breakup or something, Jin?" The sentence was met with laughter from the studio audience, and even a faint smile from Jin. But not with the ARMY. Not even with the audience understanding how deep Echo meant to Jin. Moreover, the gaze of Shin Se Kyung, who was sitting next to him silent, tense, as if realizing that the joke had just crossed the line. Did Jimmy Fallon really understand the meaning of his album? Or is he just judging from the surface? And is the expression of the genie, who remains calm, just a mask of professionalism, while inwardly he is in turmoil? The reaction from fans was unstoppable. Jimmy literally mocked his growth as an artist, wrote one ex-user. "You don't compare Echo with Happy. You just don't." But why did Fallon make that comparison? Is he following the direction of the production team? Is this part of the media strategy? Or even further, is there any pressure from outsiders who want Jin to remain as cheerful, vigorous as he used to be, even if he now chooses a more emotional and introspective path? ARMY's anger isn't just about the joke. They dig deeper. They compared Jin's expression when performing with Happy in November 2024, a spotlight and fireworks display at the Empire State Building, with his new look for Echo, which seems more minimalist, dim, and flat for those who don't understand its essence. But for those who are really steeped in this work, Echo is a much more mature art form. A work that does not need to be filled with sparkling lights, because its content is enough to illuminate the soul of whoever hears it. But why is it precisely this appearance criticized? Is the public not ready to accept a more calm and profound genie? Or is this a sign that the entertainment world is still forcing idols to become entertainment clowns without giving space to their human side? And what about Shin Se Kyung's expression that night? He didn't say anything, but his face said a lot. He looked at Jin, then looked at Fallon for a moment, as if he couldn't believe that the sentence had just been said on such a serious stage. Some fans even believe that Se Kyung refrained from speaking. What was he really thinking? Was he also disappointed with how the genie was treated? Surprisingly, after that appearance, some of the staff of The Tonight Show reportedly removed certain videos from social media. One of them is a close-up camera cut to Jin's face as Fallon jokes about Echo and Happy's comparison. The video lasted only a few hours before disappearing from NBC's official account. But as always, the internet never forgets. The video has gone viral and has become a source of heated debate. It didn't take long for #RespectJin and #FallonApologize to become trending topics. However, as of this writing, there has been no official apology from Jimmy Fallon or his production team. This further muddied the atmosphere, and fans began to ask, is this intentional? Don't they care? Or more horrifically, was this a subtle form of sabotage to Jin's reputation as a soloist? What makes it all the more emotional is the fact that Jin is already working so hard for the Echo album. On numerous previous occasions, including in exclusive behind-the-scenes interviews, Jin mentioned that Echo was an album he dedicated to getting to know himself after years of performing in the spotlight. He composed these songs during a silent night, in the midst of a long process of reflection, with many tears and fears. Then now, the result of all that hard work and mental injury is just a joke. He's not just a singer. He was a poet, a writer, an artist, wrote one fan on Weverse. And Fallon treated him like a joke Thursday night. Not only international fans have a say. The Korean Army community also voiced their protest. They demanded clarification from NBC and called for justice in the treatment of Asian guest stars. It's not the first time a K-pop star has been treated unequally in Western programs, and many feel enough is enough. But perhaps the most touching was Jin's own response. A few days after the incident, he wrote in Weverse, "I've always tried to express myself in my music. I know not everyone will understand, but I hope they can feel the sincerity I pour out." Words that are simple, yet describe how deep a wound he hides behind that smile. Now, the question is, what will happen next? Will Fallon speak up? Will NBC be responsible? And how will this affect Jin's solo career going forward? Or more importantly, will the world finally learn to respect artists who choose to be honest? Instead of just shining, one thing is certain. The genie is not alone. And in the echo of the indignation and tears of his fans, the most powerful voice of all sounded, an echo that can never be silenced. But before all this happens, before ARMY's emotional outbursts and before Fallon's stormy laughter, we have to step back a few months. November 2024, the time in which Jin marks his return as a full-fledged soloist with the album Happy. The album is bright, colorful, evokes nostalgia, but still retains a layer of deep meaning. His performance at that time was called iconic, not only because of the brightly lit stage of the Empire State Building, but because of the radiating aura of Jin, as if saying, "I'm back and I'm ready for everything." But who would have thought that after all that light, the genie would return with a work like Echo, a complete reversal, but instead showing the real growth of an artist? Is this a decline? Or is this an artistic maturation that not everyone is ready to accept? "The world just loves glitter," said one independent music critic on his YouTube channel. And when an artist like Jin chooses to display quiet honesty, the media instead accuses him of losing his spark. But did they know that silence is the most honest form of power a poet has? Those who understand music certainly know, Echo is not just a bunch of songs. It was an emotional narrative about time, loss, guilt, and the search for meaning. One of the most talked about songs, Silent Rooms, subtly conveys a message about the loneliness experienced by someone who lives in the public spotlight, but feels like no one is really listening. The song, written by Jin himself, uses minimalist instrumentation and metaphorical lyrics. But that's exactly what makes it so powerful. But on The Tonight Show, Silent Rooms received only minor praise before Fallon hastily moved on to more light topics, discussing memes, laughter, and card games. Is Jin invited as an artist or just entertainment material? This question continues to rumble in the ARMY community. What makes things even more complicated is the appearance of Shin Se Kyung. A few days before the show aired, the media had already discussed the possibility of a collaboration between Se Kyung and Jin in a video clip project for the song, Evening Echo. But no one expected that his presence on the same couch with a genie on the show would add fuel to the already smoldering fire. Why was she silent when Fallon made that joke? Does he know more than he seems? Or is there something he really wants to say, but can't? In several analysis videos circulating among fans, Se Kyung's gestures became a topic of discussion. One clip shows her taking a deep breath just after Fallon calls Echo breakup energy. One very meaningful moment. Is it a form of sympathy? Disapproval? Or is it just a sign that he knows the pressure that Jin is experiencing behind the scenes? And who can forget the events after the show is over? Some fans waiting outside the studio said that Jin was seen rushing out of the building without much greeting. Not as usual. Usually, the genie always waved, smiled, and gave a warm greeting even if only briefly. That night, nothing. Just a quick step, a downcast face, And an escort that looks tighter than usual. Did I S it because of an unstable feeling? Did Jin really feel attacked by a show that was supposed to give him a stage of honor? Meanwhile, the comments of the fans continue to flood all social media. Some claim that Jin deserved to be treated with more respect. There were also those who began to compare the way Western media treated K-pop artists with local artists. If this happened to Harry Styles or Ed Sheeran, would Fallon be joking like that? Asked a fan in a viral thread. Why is it that when artists from Asia present emotional works, they are perceived as weak or unattractive? Not a few also bring up an old issue, the bias of the Ameri. One question that kept reverberating in fans' hearts after that night was, why did they let Jin stand alone in the middle of this storm? Because it didn't take long for the global reaction to start reverberating. From Seoul to Sao Paulo, from Jakarta to Johannesburg, Jin's fanbase, known as Moonlights, embarked on an unprecedented wave of solidarity since Jin first debuted as a soloist. With the hashtags #RespectJin and #EchoIsArt, millions of fans flooded social media. But what really stunned the world wasn't just the numbers, it was the message that a fan from Argentina tweeted. He didn't make a sound when he was taken down. But the music is louder than 1,000 insults. Echo made me realize how silent could mean an unhealed wound. Meanwhile, on TikTok, many have made a comparison montage video between Jin's appearance in Happy and Echo, comparing the look in her eyes, her body language, to the way she looks at the camera. One video even went viral with over 12 million views overnight, titled, "It's not a decline, it's an evolution. The genie in 7 minutes." But what is really touching are the open letters of independent artists and music critics. A choreographer from Paris wrote, "Echo is a silent dance that can only be danced by those who once lost something that cannot return." On her YouTube channel, she revealed how Jin's choreography in the MV seemed to illustrate rejection, acceptance, and ultimately sincerity. However, not all parties chose silence. One of the former writers of The Tonight Show, who has now stepped out of the show's production, shared a surprise tweet. "I had no idea that the script of the night would go that way. There should be a segment of lyric appreciation and creative discussion behind Echo." But everything was crossed out minutes before it aired because it was less interesting for prime time. "I apologize to Jin." The tweet went viral immediately. The reaction of the fans? Angry. Sad. But above all, disappointed. They were not only disappointed in Fallon, but in the entertainment system that continued to belittle his art when it did not meet his commercial tastes. And here's what hurts. Jin doesn't just face jokes on the evening show. He faces reductionism for his work and soul in front of millions of viewers. Then comes another jarring question. If this happens to Jin, a member of a global group like BTS, with such massive army support, what about the other Asian artists who are still fighting to be recognized? This issue soon extended to discussions of Asian representation in the global media. Many public figures of Asian descent, including Hollywood actors and famous writers, began to raise their voices. Actress Sandra Oh posted a short message on Instagram. "This is not the first time, but hopefully it will be the last." Meanwhile, Asian American novelist Celeste Ng shares a passage from her novel that talks about how Westerners often reject things they don't understand, labeling them weird, less interesting, or even boring. But Jin didn't say a word. Not on Weverse, not on Instagram, not through live broadcast. Jin's silence, on the other hand, became the biggest highlight. Many call it the most elegant form of passive resistance. A fan wrote, "When Jin chose not to explain, he forced the world to look for his own answers in his song. And those who really listen to Echo will understand." Meanwhile, HYB's agency remained silent, showing only a series of photos of Jin in the studio, alone, staring at a screen, or holding a microphone in a dark room. As like to say, he did not finish. This is just the beginning. However, rumors began to grow. There are mentions that Jin is considering making a documentary project to showcase the emotional process behind Echo. Reportedly, the project will be more than just a documentary. It will be a personal art manifesto that will also touch on how the media treats Asian artists. Even some of the crew from the project, Burn the Stage, used to be rumored to be involved again. On the other hand, there are rumors that The Tonight Show is considering an official apology. but fans are skeptical. They will only apologize because of public pressure, not because they truly understand Jin's pain, one ARMY member wrote at an international forum. But perhaps the biggest surprise came from Jin himself, through his music. A few days after the incident, ARMY discovered that Jin's Spotify page was updated with a 33-second